Can I still eat cheese and call myself a carnivore? The carnivore diet is a meat-based animal product diet, so technically, yes, I can include the cheese in my diet. But the subject is highly controversial. Some people swear by it, and some people say it should not be part of the carnivore diet at all. So today I wanted to unpack this question a little bit and to talk about some of the pros and cons of dairy and to share my own experience. But my primary goal in this video is to empower you to make your own decision. I'm not here to tell you what to do because that's not my right. You've got to make your own decision, but in this video, I wanted to give you some basic information so that you are equipped to make the right decision. So in this video, I'm going to give you some pros and cons, but first of all, I'm going to share a little bit of my own experience. I've been on carnivore now for 6 months and I have lost 20 kilos. That's about 43, 44 pounds of weight, and I have achieved all my health goals. But for the larger part of my journey, I have largely left dairy out of my carnivore diet. The only dairy I've really had is to put some cream in my coffee, and very occasionally I might have a slice of cheese. So generally speaking, I have severely restricted dairy without eliminating it altogether. So now to give you some pros and cons, I'm going to start with the pros. There's 4 good reasons why you might include dairy. The first reason is pretty obvious. It's going to give you greater variety on your carnivore diet. One of the complaints that people make when they're considering the carnivore diet is that it appears to be so restrictive. And I remember thinking that back when I started. I first looked at carnivore. It is so extreme and restrictive, you could not possibly sustain that. I think very differently, having been on it for a while now. But that's where I started from, and a lot of people think that. And if you include a bit of dairy, it does greatly increase the number of dishes you're able to cook, the number of recipes you are able to make, and it adds a variety of flavours to your meals. So that's the first big advantage. It does give you a much greater variety of things to choose from on your menu. The second pro that we could say about dairy is that dairy is just so nutrient dense. I mean, it is delicious and it is nutrient dense. It's packed with vitamins and minerals, and it's just so good for you. So that's a strong tick for including dairy on your carnivore diet. The third one follows straight on. Dairy is high in fat, and carnivores love fat. We like to get as much fat into our diet as we can, and dairy certainly gives us a high proportion of fat. So that's another tick in favour of dairy on your carnivore diet. The fourth reason you might include dairy in your diet is that it's just so convenient. I mean, you can have in your fridge some cheese or some yogurt or whatever dairy delights you want to include, and you can get them out anytime for a quick snack, any time of day, morning, noon or night. You've got some ready-made snacks in the fridge that don't need any preparation. They're good to go. Just from my own experience here, before I started the carnivore diet, snacking was a huge part of my life. And I would eat cakes and biscuits and chocolate between meals, and it was not a good place to be. And I'm so keen to eliminate that whole habit of snacking that I don't want to have dairy as snacks. So I've eliminated snacks, and I think there's a good place for that. If you're struggling with cravings maybe, but look, you don't really want to be introducing snacks into your carnivore diet. You want to fill up with meat and be satiated, and you're never hungry, and that's just such a good way to go. So that's 4 positives about the inclusion of dairy on the carnivore diet. What about some negatives? Well, there are some big negatives. The first one is that dairy contains lactose. Lactose is a particular kind of sugar that's found in dairy products, and there are some people who are actually lactose intolerant, and those people know that they can't have any lactose, otherwise it will cause stomach cramps and nausea and headaches and all sorts of issues that they really don't want, and so we have to be careful of that. But in any case, we need to know that the lactose is there, and it is essentially a sugar in dairy products that we need to be aware of. The second negative with including dairy is that so often the inclusion of dairy will mess up your weight loss. I found this myself. In the early days when I was trying to lose weight, I found if I increased the dairy beyond the barest minimum, my weight loss would slow right down. But when I cut the dairy back, the weight loss would take off again. And that's a common experience with people on carnivore. I'm not saying that that's going to be true of everybody, but it is a very common experience. So if you're at a stage of the carnivore diet where you're really wanting to put emphasis on losing weight, then maybe cut the dairy right out, at least for a season, and see how you go. The third big negative with including dairy on carnivore is that it can spike your insulin levels. Now, this is a big one because many people starting carnivore want to get their insulin levels down. Particularly people that have any sort of issue with metabolic health, that whole area of diabetes and fatty liver and those sorts of issues, you want to get your insulin down because what the insulin does in your bloodstream is that it ultimately becomes sugar. Now, the reason that dairy can spike your insulin is that dairy contains carbs, and carbs are the real enemy of the carnivore diet. Let me explain what I mean. If you were to take a 240 ml glass of milk, that one glass contains somewhere between 13 and 14 grams of carbs. That's a lot of carbs in just one glass. And it doesn't matter whether it's high-fat milk or low-fat milk, that same number of carbs is always going to be there. Those carbs will spike your insulin and they will turn into sugar in your system. So we need to be aware of that. Now, what about cream? Is cream the same? No, cream is quite different because, say for instance, you had 1 tablespoon of heavy cream. Well, in that tablespoon of heavy cream, there is only half a gram of carbs. This is the reason why many people on the carnivore diet replace milk with heavy cream. Not only is that heavy cream far lighter in carbs, but it's also much higher in fat. So that's a good combination. Almost no carbs and higher fat level. So cream seems to be a plus compared to milk. Well, you might ask about cheese. What about cheese? Can I have a piece of cheese? Well, I love a piece of cheese myself, but let's have a look at it. The average slice of cheese, I'm talking one slice, contains half a gram of carbs. So that's pretty negligible. Now, obviously that figure is going to vary from cheese to cheese because there's all different cheeses, but it's not going to vary that much. Generally speaking, that half a gram per slice is going to hold up. It's pretty much the same with Greek yogurt, only about half a gram of carbs in a small serve of Greek yogurt. So when we look at carbs so far, the real villain to watch out for is milk, but including heavy cream and maybe a little bit of cheese might be okay. But the fourth negative about dairy just follows straight on from that, and that is that dairy is just so delicious. That means it's very addictive. And it would be so easy to settle down in front of the television and watch a movie and get out a whole block of cheese and just consume it slice after slice after slice, because let's face it, who doesn't love a nice piece of cheese? I remember Dr. Chaffee saying that we should treat cheese as a condiment and not as a main course. In other words, just a small piece, just a single slice of cheese as a snack or as an addition to a meal, but don't cut up slice after slice after slice, because that's definitely going to cause problems. It is delicious, but it is addictive. And if you eat slice after slice after slice, you're going to have a problem. So you've got to learn to control dairy properly so that it doesn't get away from you. Just learn to enjoy a single slice. So there we have 4 pros and 4 cons. Now, should you include dairy, yes or no? I can't tell you that. You've got to make up your mind because it's your carnivore diet, it's your journey, and you are the person ultimately in charge of your health journey. So you've got to make your own decision. One word of advice, if you do include dairy products, put some effort in to get some decent dairy products. Don't buy the stuff at the supermarket that's come from caged animals and so forth. You want to find a decent supply of good quality dairy products. Go to a farmer's market or source a farm that sells from their gate. They're around, you can find them. Do a search on internet, do some checking, but find a good source of dairy products. So tell us in the comments whether or not you include dairy on your carnivore diet, what experiences you've had, good and bad, and where you've come out at the present time with including dairy. If you're very new to all of this and you're still trying to weigh up whether it's better to go keto diet or the carnivore diet, I did a video just recently comparing the two side by side. Again, not to give you advice, but just to give you information. I will put a link to that video up above. I would like to invite you to join our Facebook group, The Carnivore Pensioner. I will see you on the next video, but until then, keep telling your story.